You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox City's Murder and Mayhem podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin, we are back again. He's got notes in front of him of a guy named Henry.
Yeah, you can see that. Okay, yeah. Yeah, a guy named Henry. Actually, two guys named Henry today. Yeah, this was an episode that you recommended.
Wow, it was, huh?
Yep.
No idea what's coming, people, so...
No, this was a while back now, but this was... and what you recommended takes up half of a page.
Okay.
But there was more that you did not know.
Okay.
So it becomes a story.
All right, so let's hear... Well, first, where are we?
We're going to start in Kaukauna.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
That's where we should start every episode.
Yeah, we're starting in Kaukauna because that's where all the stories start. So we're talking about Henry Quaid. Henry Quaid is in Kaukauna. He's married. He has 7 children. From what I can tell, it seems like sometimes he works at the paper mills. Sometimes he gets contracts to put in sidewalks at a time. This is the 1890s, so this is the time when sidewalks are going in kind of regularly.
Okay.
But we don't care about any of that. We just care about this one thing.
Okay.
On August 26, 1900, Henry Quaid and his family are with about 30 other people along the Fox River for a fish fry. They're in the general area of Lindauer and Rhodes Brickyard in Kaukauna, which was just northeast of the city. For those familiar with the Marina Bar, it's like behind and up the hill from there.
Okay.
While they were having this fish fry, picnic, whatever, they found a rowboat near the shore, and they thought, geez, this would be fun to go on a boat ride in the middle of this picnic. They decided to give it a try. But the family was too big. The family had too many people, and they couldn't all fit in the boat. So the 14-year-old daughter, her name is Annie, stayed on the shore to watch their 3-year-old daughter, not named in the story, and a 3-month-old boy, Henry Jr. So they're going to be on the shore.
Okay.
The rest of the family fits in the boat.
So can you break down what is the rest of the family? Mom, dad,
and
5 other kids,
and three other kids here are going to be in this boat.
Okay.
Harold, William, and Freddie, who are ages 6, 8, and 10.
Okay.
Well, this apparently does not go well because at one point on their short boat ride, they decide that they're not sitting how they want to be sitting, and they try to change seats, and in the process, they flip the boat over.
Oh, no.
And they go and they fall in the Fox River. This is by the first lock in Kaukauna, and it's estimated to be about 12 to 15 feet deep, which isn't like ridiculously deep, but in the Fox River, like that's deep enough. It's that river will take you.
Yeah, like for people that don't know, right? The Fox River has ungodly like undercurrents.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the day, people drowned in the river and the canal all the time.
And it's not about how deep the water is at all. It's about the currents. The currents will just swipe you away and take you out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so they all fall in the water. Now, Henry Quaid, the father, was able to hang on to the boat after it flipped. And his daughter, Elsie, was able to hang on to him. The newspaper called her grip death grip energy. She had death grip energy. The picnickers on shore saw the capsized boat, but did not care. They thought, oh, the family's just going for a swim in the river. That happens. But eventually they realized that there was some trouble when the swimming didn't look very good. and through some teamwork was able to bring the family to shore, at least some of them. The mother was dead, but even in death, she had her hands firmly grasped on the anchor rope of the boat. They were able to untangle her from that rope and tried to resuscitate her, but she was beyond saving. 2 of the drowned sons were found the next day. In their death, they were apparently wrapped in each other's arms. They had died hugging each other under the water.
Okay.
And another day would go by before the 3rd son, Freddie, bobbed to the surface, and his father found him near the brickyard, not actually far from where the boat went under. Coroner's inquest was held, and the result was accidental drowning, to nobody's surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Quaid, now without a wife and some children, gets remarried to another woman and has 2 more children. But we don't care about Henry Quaid anymore.
Okay.
So you had turned in this story. You said, "Hey, this family drowned in a boat," and I was like, "I don't care."
Yeah. You said there's probably not a story there. And,
yeah, I'm like,
and it sounds like you were kind of right.
I'm like, not that this isn't this. This was a tragic story, absolutely. But if we had a story every time somebody drowned in the river, it'd be a lot of stories.
It'll be a lot of 5-minute podcasts because there's just not a whole lot to say about it.
Right. But this turned out to actually be a pretty great request.
Okay.
So during that drowning, the daughter Annie is on the shore watching a 3-year-old girl and a 3-month-old boy. The 3-month-old boy is Henry Jr.
Okay.
Now, Henry Jr., who would have probably died if he was on that boat, instead does not die and is the focus of the rest of our story.
Okay. And he was one of them that was on shore.
Yeah.
With his sister or whatever.
Yes. So, Henry Quaid II, the second Henry Quaid, he becomes a world traveler. As a kid, he's in Kaukauna, but he becomes a world traveler, specifically in Asia. He's tends to hang around Shanghai, China.
Okay.
He's a big fan of that. Now, it sounds like he might have been there as part of a Methodist mission, like spreading religion to the people of China. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he associates with the people from that mission, so it seems like he might have been part of it.
Okay.
So he's there, and he ends up meeting a young woman named Henrietta, who, her name, to me, sounds like a German name. Her name is Henrietta Wheel, but she had actually been born in the Philippines. So she was, by nationality, she was a Filipino. They end up getting married by the Methodist minister at the embassy in China. It seems like they're happy. They're going to be together the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Jr., while in China, decides to take up employment with General Motors. General Motors is establishing a big operation, a big car factory in Indonesia in 1927. And he said, well, this is the job for me because I love Asia. So he joins on there. And apparently this is a big deal. Now, Indonesia at this time is a Dutch territory. It's not an independent country yet.
Okay.
So there's a lot of Dutch people and British people and American people all just kind of running things. And the cars made in Indonesia apparently are largely made out of wood.
Okay.
Like the bodies of the cars are wood. They're cheaper cars than that are made in the U.S. or wherever. But people there wanted cheaper cars, so that's how they got cheaper cars. He worked for General Motors and rose up to be a manager there, so much so that he's quoted regularly in the newspapers often in Dutch, which made it a real pain in the butt for me to try to figure out some of these things because I don't read Dutch so good. But he is quoted on things, talks about how the market that they have there has the wooden cars, but he's like, if Australia wants to send in their like actual metal cars, people would probably buy them because we have people in Indonesia that want to buy real cars. Mm-hmm. So he's like trying to negotiate, expanded business. He continues to rise up the ranks. By 1935, he seems to be more or less the guy in charge of General Motors in Indonesia.
Okay.
There was one guy above him, but he ends up moving on and going back to New York. Apparently, New York is where you go when you reach the top. You just sit in an office in New York. Mm-hmm. But in Indonesia, he kind of goes up. Well, that's all fine and good in 1935, but within a couple years, World War II breaks out. Henrietta, his wife, leaves Indonesia in November 1941. There's threat that the Japanese are going to come in and take over Indonesia. So she gets out and she goes to the U.S. Henry is firm. He says, I am not leaving until everybody else here leaves.
Okay.
I am going to be the last man out of this factory.
So he's just staying to make sure that all of his employees get to safety, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's an article, I think it was in Time magazine, but there's like an article with a photo of him, and he's got like air raid shelters, and he's like, if people want to stay, they can stay. But he goes, but I'm not leaving until everyone's out. Well, that doesn't work so good for him.
Where do you think this is going?
Yeah. So things go downhill fast in Indonesia. The Dutch government takes over General Motors in 1941. The Indonesian General Motors, like not all of General Motors. And then in March 1942, they destroy the factory and everything in it. The Dutch government decides that they would rather seize and destroy everything there than wait for the Japanese to arrive and take it.
Okay.
Because apparently an automobile factory has things that would be valuable to the foreign military. The Japanese arrive, occupy the plant, and they lock up all the foreigners. The plant then was taken over by Toyota and was used to assemble trucks for the military. Toyota, keep in mind, a Japanese company. So today it's like, oh, Toyota, what a threat. But during World War II, Toyota would be the bad guys. So during World War II, because Henry does not flee, he ends up going to the Japanese prison. He said he wouldn't leave till everybody else was out, and unfortunately, by the time that happened, there were no more planes to take him out, and he was stuck there in the prison. The prison was apparently pretty harsh.
I was going to say.
We'll talk a bit more about that in just a bit, but at one point he's visited by, again, there's some missionaries that are allowed to come in and visit the prisoners, and one of them, her name is Jane Zumstig. She comes in to visit the prisoners and speaks to the prison doctor there, and the prison doctor tells her, I shall be the first one to cut the throat of every American in this country. So prison doctor doesn't really seem to care about his prisoners all that much. Now, after the war, Henry survives, and he writes a story. Now, I'm going to read the story in its entirety.
Okay.
It's 2 pages here, so bear with me.
And what did he write this? Is it in newspaper?
It's in a newspaper.
Okay.
This is worth reading in its entirety. So, this is Henry Quaid. I suppose I could have got out of Java before the Japs arrived, Java being Indonesia.
Okay.
But my office people, British and Dutch, had stuck with me, and I didn't like running out on them. When the Japs came, I was sitting at my desk waiting. For 4 weeks, they didn't bother me. Then, bingo, They took me and some others, and they threw me into solitary confinement. We were in a Dutch civilian prison. My cell was 4.5 feet by 9.5 feet. I got a little sun in the afternoon, but we were 3,000 feet up, and it was awfully cold. Our cell doors were solid, with slits about 6 by 2 inches and a flap outside. We could wiggle the covers and see out into the corridor, but we weren't allowed to talk. If we were caught doing it, the Jap guards beat the hell out of us. They used to question people in the middle of the night at a table outside my door. When they questioned me, I tried to be very nonchalant. It didn't show them that I hated their guts. The Jap interrogator asked me how much I had in the bank, and I told him, because I knew that he had already checked anyway. Then he asked me how much stock I had. I said my wife has it. This sounded good to him. He thought my wife was in the women's prison camp nearby. I could see him smiling and figuring out how he'd get his hands on the loot. "Where is your wife?" he asked. I said New York, and then burst out laughing when his face fell. They can't bear to be laughed at, and they took it out on me plenty. They used bamboo. During the first week or so, I lay in my bunk and thought of all the tortures I'd inflict on the Japs if I had a chance. But I found this hate was wearing me down. It kept me from sleeping, so I began deliberately to push these thoughts out of my head. I figured on being in for 2 years, and knew I'd have to do something to keep from going crazy. As it turned out, I was optimistic. I didn't get out for 3.5 years.
Wow.
I got to thinking about a boat. The thing most unlike being in a cell would be cruising around on a boat, where you were the boss and could go anywhere you felt like. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. Like, he does not mention this, and I'm sure because he was a baby, he doesn't remember it. But it's weird knowing that his family drowned on a boat in the river, that he's now, like, obsessed with a boat.
But I mean, I guess he's probably at that age where, you know, like at this point in his life, that memory is barely even there.
I'm sure he has no idea about. I mean, he knows what happened, but
yeah, he obviously knows why half his family is dead. But
yeah, the yacht basin was right next to our plant in Java. Yachts and cruisers were always tying up there, and I'd often thought of building one for myself. Up till then, I'd never had the time. This was my chance. Of course, we weren't allowed paper or pencil or books. We were just alone with our thoughts. In my mind, I first went over different boats I had liked, and I recalled construction details that ordinarily I'd never have thought of again. I finally settled on a 45-foot combination sail and diesel, with 2 masts. I was going to have Irish linen sails, which last practically forever, and stainless steel cables. For purposes of planning, I used Javanese teak, because it is virtually the same weight as water. Thus I could carry in my mind the growing weight of the hull as I built my boat. I couldn't carry too many fractions in my head, so I simplified matters by using 1-inch planking and 2x4 ribs. Knowledge of my own company's motors made it easy to estimate the weight of my diesel engine. It's pretty hard to remember figures when you're hungry. We always were. I had to go over and over my basic measurements. Mostly, I worked on the boat at night. I was bitterly cold, and my cotton blanket was about as thick as a tablecloth. I'd pull it up over my head to keep out the mosquitoes, and then review my figures and work out new ones until I fell asleep from exhaustion. Finally, I got the keel laid and the planking on, ran up the mast, and figured the total displacement. After that, it was comparatively easy to install the engine and an auxiliary motor for the generator. I'll pause here again. I know that he said it, but I want to make clear to the audience here, like, he's not building a boat. None of this is happening.
Oh, okay. See, I totally missed that. So he's just what?
In his mind, he keeps rebuilding this boat and changing the measurements and trying to figure out how to do it right.
And this is just his way of coping.
This is how he passes the time. He's not actually doing anything. I designed the galley with an oil-burning stove, very compact, and kitchen utensils that would clamp onto the range. I decided to divide my stores into lockers so they would not shift. And believe me, I was going to have some swell grub. Cases of ham and chicken and canned sausages and bacon and fruit and jelly. The table just outside my cell was used for distributing the food. And when I was so hungry I could hardly stand up, I'd see the guard fishing out the tiny pieces of meat from our soup. I figured I got less than a quarter pound of meat in a month. Anyway, down in my galley, I was always going to have a pot of Dutch pea soup. The kind that has lots of sausage floating around in it. And I was going to be able to go down and make myself a fried Spam and egg sandwich at night. I hear the GIs don't think too much of Spam, but I used to dream about it. While doing hard mental labor on the boat, I'd often find myself making excuses to knock off and make a hot sandwich. When I got the water and fuel tanks full, I began figuring space outside the lockers for sacks of rice and other food for the native crew I planned to have. I thought I would salt fish for them and dry it on the mast. Then I realized how crazy that was. We could just fish it up when we wanted it. Then came the big day when I visualized all my stores sorted out on deck. But somewhere my calculating had gone wrong. A year's supply seemed absolutely essential, and I hadn't allowed enough space for it. There was nothing to do but start over again on plans for a bigger boat. A 65-footer was doubtful, but a 90-footer would surely do it. I even toyed with the idea of a 120-footer, but that would have tied up a lot of money. I had to consider costs of wharfage, crew, insurance, and harbor fees. I decided on the 90-foot schooner. I'd keep the 45-footer anyway and use it in Java for offshore sailing. Again, none of this is real. None of this is actually happening.
I'm curious, does this article, so is he writing this like right after he gets out and he still believes that this happened while he was there? Or did I miss something and he does specifically state that, like, this is how I passed the time?
This is how he passed the time. No,
Okay,
he doesn't think he did this.
Okay. I didn't know.
But yeah, this is within a year. This is within a year of him getting out, and he's relaying his story to the news. I went to work on the bigger job, and I got it nearly done before I was taken out of solitary and put in a prison camp. There were several ship's officers in the camp, and we talked my boat over from end to end. An Australian prisoner had once actually built such a boat. I had wanted a wide stern on mine to make room for a big cabin, but he insisted that a double ender would be more stable in following seas. We argued a lot about that, but I finally gave in. Another officer instructed me in elementary navigation. When the Japs weren't looking, he'd draw diagrams with charcoal on a concrete manhole cover in the prison yard. He taught me rules of the road, buoyage systems, and how to use tide tables. I took a long time deciding on a name for my boat. I finally settled on Orang Timor Laut. That's Malaysian for Man of the Eastern Sea. I am not much of a drinking man, but I wanted liquor on board for guests. On the forward bulkhead of the main cabin, I was going to have a sliding panel, and inside a cask of sherry I'd pick up in Spain, some port from Portugal, good brandy from France. That about finished it, and I think my dream boat is what kept me going. I used to figure out mileages and cost, but that was just relaxation. I was going to take a summer cruise around the Mediterranean and then into the Black Sea. Of course, I have never really built my boat. When I got back to Java, I probably will. I've always thought that when I retired, I'd want to take a 5-year cruise on just such a boat, but I'm not going to commit myself. I've had too many plans upset since 1942. He gives this interview with the newspaper about him in the Japanese prison, and it's pretty long, as everyone just heard, but he doesn't actually really talk about the Japanese prison much at all.
No, it doesn't. He doesn't. He just talks about his little daydreams.
Yeah, he's like, this is what you got to do when you're freezing, hungry in prison for years. This is what you got to do to keep from going nuts or just dying.
And, when you think about it, maybe that was just his way of dealing with it. Like, maybe that's what his prison time was, because he shut everything out and just completely focused on this imaginary boat.
Yeah. Well, he does survive, and then finally in November 1945, he's flown by a U.S. Army plane to San Francisco, and finally from there he gets to New York City, where he goes back to General Motors.
So did they keep his job for him?
They kept his job for him. It was very nice of them. Immediately after World War II, Indonesia is going through a revolution, and they're now fighting for independence from the Dutch. So he's brought back to New York for General Motors. He still wants to go back to Indonesia and work for General Motors. It's not necessarily the best time to do that, but he does get back there.
Okay.
So he gets back where he's the head of General Motors once more in Indonesia, and seems to be that he's there until 1956, I think.
You never did mention, and maybe you don't know this, but when he gets back, is his wife still there waiting for him?
He's still with his wife.
Okay,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
So his wife is also going back to Indonesia at this point. Okay.
Yep, he's still with his wife. He allegedly dies in September 1995. Now, I say allegedly. I mean, he's dead. Like, very confident of that. But I say allegedly because the online genealogy site I use lists his death as September 1995, but there's no record saying of how that happened or anything, and I couldn't find a news article or anything, so it's probably correct, but I could not personally verify that.
Okay.
But regardless, he got quite wealthy off of being the head of General Motors in Indonesia.
Which sounds like you would,
And when he passed, his estate was distributed out. His will had certain people in charge of distributing things to different places. Allegheny College, which I don't really know Allegheny College, but apparently they ended up getting $1 million off of him, which was enough to build paths, garden pathways, as well as some sculptures. So there's apparently a really beautiful sculptured garden area at Allegheny College that's there because of him. So,
do you know where Allegheny College is?
I probably should have written that down. No, I don't.
Okay. I'm just curious.
But yeah, so this guy, this is why this turned into an interesting story to me, because to me it's like, okay, you've got the Kaukauna family, so you got my attention. You got the Kaukauna family, but the story, it takes all of 5 minutes. They drowned and that's it. Like that's tragic, but there's not a story there really. But the kid surviving has a remarkable life. And this is not a story that is known in Kaukauna. I'll tell you that. The Kaukauna newspapers never talk about this guy.
Really?
Never.
Okay.
Which is bizarre to me, because you think like they would say, oh, this is a kid who grew up in Kaukauna, and look at, he's like a huge multi-million-dollar success. Never mention it.
Prisoner of war.
Yeah.
I mean,
never, ever comes up. So that's weird to me. But I guess he just left at a young enough age where nobody really kept track of him. But I was like, wow. That he really made something of himself, and it's like, yeah, you survive. Well, I guess he didn't survive drowning because he wasn't on the boat, but he survived that incident and then goes on to suffer something that's a little bit worse.
Yeah.
The drowning's at least pretty quick.
Yeah, and I just can't imagine the crap that he went through and just how horrifying. Can you even try to put yourself in that position and imagine what it would be like. I don't even know how I would react, you can tell that it was probably pretty awful based by the fact that, his little world that he created while he was in prison is pretty elaborate.
Yeah.
I think people would probably hear that and think that's pretty scary that he had to do that to get through it.
I cannot imagine years of freezing, starving, solitary. I cannot imagine that. But I will say, I am somewhat claustrophobic, and that to me, even take away the cold and the hungry, I would be freaking out in a prison cell.
In a room that small with no windows and stuff like that, you're just like, no, can't do it.
Yeah, so already day one, I'm having a bad time.
So I did find Allegheny College, I think.
Okay.
And it is in Meadville, Pennsylvania. Would that make sense? Or
sure.
should it be one in Wisconsin?
No.
Okay.
Because it's kind of weird. So the way the will is set up is that he designates certain people and he says they can give to a worthy cause of their choice.
Oh, okay.
So the donation isn't necessarily something that he chose. So he has no direct connection to Allegheny College that I'm aware of.
He just chose somebody who might have had.
The person that he gave power to handle the money apparently felt Allegheny was the right choice.
This is a cool story. I'm kind of disappointed because I was looking up something for another story I had sent you.
Okay.
And somehow I just stumbled upon an article. I don't know if it was on that page or something, and I just clicked it and I'm like, oh, what is this? So, and that's when I sent it to you. But I am a little disappointed the drowning wasn't more than that. But it is real.
I could make it more elaborate. I could turn it into a flowery language story, but the information isn't much. The information is the article.
Right. But yeah, hearing this guy's story, this is incredible, right? And again, from Kaukauna.
Yeah.
And who knows that this guy even existed, and he made it all the way to the top of running an entire region of General Motors.
And I'd love to even flesh this up more. It was a real challenge because he's in Indonesia. So I don't know if Indonesia had newspapers. They probably did, but I don't really have regular access to that.
Yeah.
And they're going to be in Dutch, which I don't read so good.
I'm gonna say that even if they did have newspapers, it's going to be very hard for you to find a repository of all those newspapers online at this point.
Yeah, that was the thing. There were a couple articles I found because they made it into a New Zealand newspaper. So that worked out because those are in English. But
but the rest was all Dutch, and you're like,
yeah.
Right.
So it's I'm sure there's a lot more information out there on this guy's. I don't know how exciting it is to talk about what a business executive did for General Motors, but I think he's an interesting guy. So,
and I'm gonna ask you a question that I probably ask you on a lot of these types of episodes, because obviously, you started at one story, ended at this story. So how do you? Is it very would you just normally in the scenario when you're doing a story like this, just check the stories of all the characters involved that you would discover this? How did you discover? Because obviously this is quite a ways away from the story you were researching. How'd you figure out about all the...
Well, so two different ways, actually. So one, yes, you are correct. In a story like this, when there's a tragedy and somebody survives the tragedy, I like to check what happened to that person. Even if it doesn't turn into a story, just to kind of say, here's what happened afterwards to these people. So that would have worked in this case. The other thing is, by weird coincidence, I had not remembered this at the time, I think I mentioned this to you though. When I started looking into it, I found that I had actually worked on some of this previously because there was like a grand nephew who had reached out to me and asked me to like look into something. So, you know, and that didn't stick with me because it wasn't important to me at the time. It was just something I did for, like, I look up stuff for people all the time. And it didn't really stick with me because I didn't know the whole thing about the prison and all that. But as soon as I started looking, I was like, oh, I've looked up Henry Quaid before for some reason. So I was like, oh, let's see what I was doing. Because I have a tendency to like keep notes of all the stuff that I've looked up because I feel that anytime somebody's going to ask me to look something up, eventually someone's going to ask again.
So did you know that you had looked up Henry Quaid just by the simple fact that like links were clicked on Google or something? That
was part of it, but then also like I have an actual like document that
that you could actually check out.
I have a massive. It's just a list going back 6-7 years now. That's just a list of everything that I've ever looked up.
Interesting.
Yeah, I put a date and I put a name to identify it, and then what they had me look up. So it's like one line of what it was. It's not the actual information, and just going back years. So if someone ever asks for a request and I'm like, that sounds familiar, I can do a quick search on that document and see when I've looked it up before.
Interesting. I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. So
yeah,
I wonder how many researchers do that.
I don't know, but for what I do for my day job, there's a lot of repeat questions. Mm-hmm. I would say it's almost to the point where it's like 50-50, a question I've never gotten before and a question that I have gotten before. So when I know who I've done, even if I don't have the information on hand, at least can be like, oh, okay, I can see what I did previously. So it helps out.
It's interesting. Oh, so that was another one that, I mean, I don't think anybody would have guessed that story would have turned the way it did, right?
No.
Because, I mean, like, I'm sitting here thinking as we're going, I'm like, where is this going? Where is this going? But yeah. And God, the horrors of being a prisoner. And
yeah, I would have done the story either way, but finding the thing that he wrote to the paper after the fact, that sealed it for me. That was like, okay, like we would have done the story anyway, but now we've really got something because we can hear his voice and
yeah, too bad it wasn't a recording, huh?
Yeah,
that would have been really cool.
That would have been really cool, but it's always nice to hear someone tell a story in their own way.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have any idea of what's coming up next on the?
I think I do. So, okay. I started working on a story last night, so it should be ready by next time. And it's another Menominee story. I love doing Menominee stories, Menominee Indian stories. And it's a story about a Menominee Indian murder and kind of this loophole where Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty, but because native land is considered federal land, they can get the federal death penalty.
Okay.
So there are ways that you can commit crimes in Wisconsin and still get the death penalty.
So to this day, the federal death penalty has not been removed?
I don't think so.
Wow. Okay.
I'm pretty sure they don't really use it much, but I'm pretty sure the federal death penalty exists.
That'll be an interesting one. And this would probably be a good time to mention that you also have a book about Menominee tribe.
I do.
I mean,
I do.
It is a picture book, so there's not a lot of content to it.
It's one of the photo albums. It's one I just gave a copy to someone in the last week, actually. And I don't want to say I'm not proud of it, because I'm proud of it. But it's one of those things where I feel like if I went back through it now, I'd look at it and be like, oh, I could do so much better. And it's how I feel about most of the stuff I've done. So it's nothing specific to that book, but it's just like, when I learn new things all the time, and a lot of it is I learn a lot about the Menominee because, as we've established on this podcast, I love like the pre-state stuff, the interaction between the tribes and the Europeans or Americans or whatever. So I learn a lot of new stuff about that era. And so it's like, oh man, I didn't know half of that when I put that book together. That could have made it really interesting. But not to say the book is bad. It's just like things. I always find more stuff, and then it's like, oh, I wish that would have been in there.
You know, I did have a question that I think we can just do right on the podcast.
Sure.
Because then the listeners can weigh in on this as well.
Yeah.
So as hopefully all of our listeners know, we did a mining disaster up in Ishpeming, Michigan, up in the UP.
Yeah.
Well, I recently discovered of another mining disaster in Michigan.
Okay.
That I think would be a really, really good story too, where I cannot remember off the top of my head the name of the river, but they built a mine under this river.
Okay.
And in interviews that they did, like in the article I read, in interviews they did, there were miners that would say, while you were down mining, you could literally hear the water rushing from the river above you.
Okay.
As you're mining. But
that doesn't sound very good at all.
And I'm sure, Gavin, you can guess. What do you think happened?
I'm going to guess that at some point the ceiling caved in and the river came down.
Yep. River crashed into the mine and killed everybody. So my thought is MilwaukeeMafia@gmail.com. If anybody wants to hear that story, let us know, because then I can dig it out and get the information to Gavin. The article I have is very, very vague. So this would be research for Gavin. So
all right.
And I guess Gavin has to give the okay that he wants to do that.
I mean, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. But if you want another UP mining disaster story, we can do another UP mining disaster story.
I think that's a cool little subgenre we could do, because I mean, there appears to be a lot of them, and I think they're kind of interesting. So.
I imagine there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, between like cave-ins and blasts and everything else, I'm sure people were dying
left and right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry to...
Yeah. No, but seriously, it's a dangerous job.
It's a dangerous job, and they were doing it in the 20s where... Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's probably not bad today.
Well, there's also not a lot of miners today.
but I mean, but like, how many years ago... I mean, the technology was not there for people to be safe. So,
yeah.
So
okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah. So if anybody finds that one interesting, MilwaukeeMafia@gmail.com, let us know. And we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. We want to thank everybody for the continued support, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.